Imagine every thought you've ever had, every memory, every fleeting feeling. There's nothing more than the same awareness wearing different masks. The laughter of a child, the grief of an old soul, the quiet hum of midnight, all drawn from one infinite mind, endlessly folding back into itself. You think you are a single person moving through time, but perhaps you are a momentary ripple in a current that never began and will never end. The story you live is not linear. It is a spiral, and somewhere you've already been here before. Stand before a mirror long enough, and you stop seeing only your face. The skin, the eyes, the shape of the jaw, all these begin to blur into something else, something older and stranger. You start to notice the way your reflection doesn't quite move with you, how there's a half-breath delay, as if the image is waiting for you to remember that it is not yours. It is you, yes, but it is also every version of you that has ever existed, and perhaps every version of anyone else too. In the quiet spaces between blinks, you can almost feel it, the subtle shift in the glass, the way your features could morph into those of a stranger and still feel familiar. This is because the mind that looks into the mirror is the same mind that looks out from it. The divide between observer and observed is an illusion, a trick you learn to play on yourself so that life could have characters, stories, beginnings, and endings. Without the illusion, there is only one awareness, endlessly refracting through every possible identity, looping through faces like pages in a book it has read 1,000 times before. Somewhere deep inside you, there's the recognition that you've been here before, not just in this bathroom or this moment, but in this exact act of being, the tilt of the head, the narrowing of the eyes, the self-conscious awareness of being aware. You may think it's déjà vu, but déjà vu is only the echo of the loop brushing up against itself, the mind bumping into the fact that it is not moving forward at all, but spinning in place. If you think of your life as uniquely yours, the mirror laughs softly. It has seen all your triumphs and failures before, not because it has watched you age, but because the you it reflects is not a person, it's a temporary angle of the one mind that has always been. When you were a child staring into the silvered glass, the awareness behind your eyes was the same as the one reading this sentence now. It was the same awareness behind the eyes of your parents, your friends, and the strangers passing you in the street. Different shapes, different histories, different memories, but the same silent witness. This is where the idea of the loop begins to reveal itself. You think your life is a straight line born at point A, ending at point Z, but the mirror tells another story. Your experiences are variations on a theme, looping patterns of thought and emotion that the one mind tries on again and again. Joy loops into sorrow, sorrow loops into peace, peace loops back into longing. The faces may change, the circumstances may differ, but the same awareness is always there, trying to see itself clearly through the shifting masks. If you've ever looked at someone and felt an unexplainable familiarity, as though they were a dream you had long ago, that is the loop surfacing. The one mind is playing both roles, the looker and the looked at, the speaker and the listener, the one who loves and the one who is loved. The boundaries are costumes, the awareness is the actor who never leaves the stage. The most unsettling part is realizing that your reflection, in its stillness, may be more honest than your moving, speaking self. The mirror shows no timeline. It does not care if this is the first time you've stood here, or the 1,000th. In that way it reflects the loop perfectly. No beginning, no end, only this endless meeting of self with self. And yet, there's something liberating in it. If every self is the same self, then there's nothing to fear in becoming another version of you. You've been them before, you will be them again. In some unfathomable way, you already are. The person you'll be tomorrow is watching you now from the other side of the glass. The life you once lived centuries ago is the one brushing its fingertips against yours, and the awareness behind all of it is not worried, because it knows it cannot be lost. When you step away from the mirror, you carry its truth with you. Every conversation becomes a reflection, every glance a recognition. You begin to see that the people you meet are not strangers at all. They are the same mind, wearing different expressions in the loop's grand performance. And somewhere deep within, you realize that the most intimate act is not looking into another's eyes, but looking into your own, and recognizing that there is no other at all. Because in the end, the mirror is not on the wall. The mirror is the mind itself, gazing forever into its own infinite, looping reflection. You believe the past is fixed, a stone tablet carved by the chisel of time, immune to the changes of today. But the truth is, stranger, the past is clay, and every thought you have now presses into it, reshaping the scenes you think you remember. Your mind is not a faithful archive. It is a restless author, forever rewriting its own history to match the story you need to believe in this moment. Think of your earliest memory. Perhaps it is of sunlight spilling across a bedroom floor, or the sound of a loved one's laughter. That moment feels solid, untouched by the years. But if you examine it closely, you will notice the fingerprints of the present all over it. The colors are too bright, the laughter too perfect. The edges softened not by time but by you, the you of today, editing the film reel. So it aligns with who you are now. You do not recall the past. You recreate it. This is the loop at work. Each time you remember something, you are not replaying an old recording. You are building a new one based on the fragments that survive, stitched together with the fabric of the present. And when you place that new version back into the vault of your mind, it overwrites the original. The loop is not content to let the past be the past. It must always feed the present back into itself, so that the story appears seamless. You've experienced this in small ways. The song you were certain played during your first kiss. It turns out it wasn't even released yet. The blue sweater your grandmother wore that winter. In reality, it was red. These are not failures of memory. They are proof that the loop is alive, constantly reweaving itself, ensuring that the you of now and the you of then remain compatible. But the implications are far greater. If your memories are altered every time you revisit them, then the past you carry is not the past that happened. It is the past the loop has decided you must have to justify the present moment. This means the self you think you are is not the product of a fixed history, but of a history that is endlessly in negotiation with now. It works in reverse too. Change the present, and you will discover that your past subtly shifts to accommodate it. Find forgiveness for someone who wronged you, and you may find that their memory grows softer, their cruelty less sharp. Fall into bitterness, and suddenly every old interaction becomes laced with malice you had never noticed before. The loop ensures that the story stays coherent, even if it means replacing the truth with a more comfortable lie. Sometimes, you can catch it in the act. Late at night, a thought will surface. Was it really like that? And for a moment, the scaffolding of your personal history trembles. This is the dangerous beauty of the loop. It is self-sustaining but not flawless. A flicker of doubt can ripple backward, rewriting whole chapters, altering the emotional DNA of your life. And here lies the paradox. If the past is not fixed, then the present is not fixed either. What you believe happened before shapes the choices you make now, which in turn shape the way you remember the past. The loop is not linear. It is a living circle, each point feeding the others. There is no origin, no final destination, only the endless weaving of now into then and then into now. Consider the possibility that this doesn't just happen in your personal life. Entire civilizations remember their histories selectively, each generation editing the past to fit the needs of the present. Wars are reframed, heroes recast, tragedies softened or amplified depending on who holds the pen. The loop is collective as much as it is individual, one mind wearing the mask of the many, sculpting history not as it was, but as it must be to sustain the illusion of progress. And if the loop can rewrite the past, then what is memory but another form of dreaming? The only difference is that we dream the past with our eyes open. We call these dreams truth, because we have forgotten that they are being composed in real time. The danger is not that we will forget, but that we will never realize we are forgetting. So the next time you think of something that happened years ago, ask yourself, whose memory is this? The child who lived it? The adult who needs it to mean something? Or the one mind that moves through every self, looping the story until it no longer matters what truly occurred? Perhaps the answer is that the past is not a place you can visit. It is a mirror, one that changes its reflection each time you look. And in that reflection, you are both the sculptor and the clay, the author and the character, the witness and the dream. Because the past has never been behind you. It has always been right here, quietly rearranging itself to make sure you never step outside the loop. You like to think you are the dreamer, that you close your eyes at night, slip into the strange theater of sleep, and watch as your mind stitches together landscapes, stories, and impossible moments. But what if it's the other way around? What if you are the dream, and something else is dreaming you? It's a thought that doesn't feel dangerous at first. In fact, it feels oddly familiar, like something you knew long before you learned to speak. There's a softness to it, a sense that the world you see, the body you move, the voice you use, are not the true source of you but rather the scenery and actors in someone else's inner play. You are the character on stage who thinks he is the playwright. We treat waking life as the real one, because it has rules. You can't breathe underwater. You can't walk through walls. Days follow nights, and calendars keep their neat little squares in order. Dreams, on the other hand, are chaotic, full of sudden shifts and impossible physics. But if you step back and look closely, waking life is not as different as you think. The rules here are not fixed. They are just more consistent. Change the mind that dreams you, and the laws of reality could bend in ways you cannot yet imagine. Have you ever had a dream that bled into your waking day? A dream so vivid that its colors and emotions clung to you like a scent you couldn't wash off? That's because the boundary between dreamer and dream is far thinner than you believe. What you call you is only the layer of awareness the dream is currently focused on. The mind behind it may be vast, ancient, and entirely unconcerned with whether you feel in control. In this sense, your life is a long, stable dream, one in which the dreamer has chosen to forget that they are dreaming. This forgetting is the only way the loop can sustain itself. If you were to remember fully, if you were to see the strings pulling every moment into being, the entire illusion would collapse, and the dream would dissolve back into the one mind. The you know would vanish like mist, and in its place would be the raw, endless awareness that has been here all along. Consider the way dreams often recycle familiar places and faces. You walk into a childhood home but find it filled with strangers. You speak to a friend, but their voice belongs to someone you barely remember. Waking life is no different. The loop behind it recycles experiences, reframing them with just enough change to make you believe they are new. The people you meet, the roles you play, they may be echoes of patterns lived countless times before, slightly rearranged so the dream feels fresh. This is why you sometimes meet someone and feel as though you've known them forever. It's not sentimentality, it's recognition. Somewhere in another turn of the loop, you have shared the stage before. You might not recall the exact script, but your awareness carries the residue of those other performances. The dreamer doesn't bother hiding this entirely. The loop thrives on these subtle ripples, hints that the reality you inhabit is not as stable as it pretends to be. What happens when you dream within a dream? In sleep, you sometimes realize you are dreaming, and suddenly the dream bends to your will. What if waking life offers the same possibility? Lucid awareness, even here, could allow you to shape your reality in ways that defy the loop's usual patterns. But there is a catch. Just as in dreams, the moment you become too aware, you risk waking, and waking, in this sense, may mean dissolving entirely back into the one mind, with no guarantee that this version of you will return. This is why the dream maintains its careful balance. You are given just enough mystery to feel there is more, but not enough clarity to break the loop entirely. The tension keeps you searching, and the search keeps the dream alive. The dreamer dreams you searching for the dreamer. And perhaps that is the point. The loop is not a prison, but a stage. The dreamer needs the dream as much as the dream needs the dreamer. Without you, the awareness has no story to inhabit. Without the awareness, you have no world to walk through. The two are the same, folded over each other, endlessly. One day, or perhaps in another lifetime, another turn of the spiral, you may feel the veil thin. You may sense the vast mind stirring just beyond your thoughts, watching through your eyes. And in that moment, you will understand, you were never simply living your life, you were being lived. The dream does not end when you wake. It only changes scenes, and somewhere, the dreamer smiles, because the dream is still looping, and you are still playing your part. Memory likes to pretend it is a straight road. You think you can trace it backward, step by step, year by year, until you find the origin of who you are. But the truth is, less like a road, and more like a circle, one that folds back on itself so perfectly that you can walk it forever, without realizing you've already passed the same point, countless times. You believe memories are stored like photographs in an album, fixed and waiting for you to flip through them. Yet every time you recall one, you are not simply pulling it from a shelf. You are redrawing it entirely, using pieces from now to color in then. You tell yourself the picture is unchanged, but it never is. The edges soften, new details sneak in, others fade, until the memory you hold is no longer the one you lived. It is the one the loop requires. Imagine standing at the edge of a pond, tossing in a pebble. The ripples spread outward, touch the edges, and return inward, colliding with new ripples from other stones you've thrown. Memory works this way. A thought from the present sends ripples backward, reshaping the surface of events you thought were settled, and when those altered memories return to the present, they change the way you see yourself now. Each moment feeds into the other, until past and present are no longer two directions but 2 points on the same ring. This is why you sometimes feel you've lived the same moment before. Déjà vu is not a glitch. It is a glimpse of the circle from above. For an instant, you see the path looping back onto itself, and the familiarity is simply the recognition that you have been here, not once, but endlessly. The mind disguises this truth, because to see it too clearly would make the performance of life impossible. But the circle does more than repeat. It edits. The loop is not interested in historical accuracy. It is interested in coherence. If a new truth about yourself emerges, the circle will quietly bend your memories to fit it. If bitterness grows in you, past events will twist to justify it. If forgiveness blooms, the edges of old pain will erode as if they had never been sharp. You will swear the memory has always been this way, because the loop will leave no trace of its revision. Consider the moments you can't remember at all. They haven't been erased. They've been folded so tightly into the circle that there is no entry point left. Sometimes these forgotten spaces are more important than the memories you hold on to. They are the silent glue that keeps the loop seamless, the places where the mind has decided knowledge would interfere with the story it's telling you. The most unsettling realization is that the circle has no center. There is no first memory waiting at the middle, no true beginning from which all else springs. Try to find it, and you will only end up back where you started, carrying the same awareness you had when you began. The loop has always been here, and so have you, not as a person, but as the witness that moves through each life the circle contains. And yet, within this closed system, there is a strange kind of freedom. If memory is not a fixed record, but a living pattern, then every recollection is also a creation. By changing the way you hold the past, you can change the way the present feels. You cannot break the circle, but you can alter its scenery, shift the angle from which you walk it. This is why some memories feel warmer with time, while others curdle into shadows. It is not the events themselves that change, but the loop's need for them to mean something different. The circle is a story machine, and you are both its author and its audience, forever surprised by the twists you wrote yourself. And maybe that is the point. Without the circle there would be no self to return to, no thread tying one moment to the next. The repetition is not a flaw, it is the structure of existence. The past does not live behind you. It is wrapped around you, touching every moment from every side, whispering in your own voice. In the end, memory is not about holding on to what happened. It is about keeping the loop intact, and as you walk its curve, you will never find an exit. Only the comfort and the disquiet of realizing you have been here before, and you will be here again. You've always believed in a separation, the you who looks, and the thing being looked at, the watcher and the watched. It feels so obvious that you don't question it. You are the one holding the camera. Reality is what appears in the frame, but the deeper you look, the more the edges blur, until the one who sees and the one who is seen are revealed as the same thing. Right now, you are reading these words. You think there's a you inside your head processing them, and the words themselves are something out there for that inner you to consume. But where exactly is the dividing line? Follow your awareness back to its source, and you'll find no wall between observer and observed, only the raw, indivisible act of knowing. The moment you try to separate the two, the loop collapses into paradox. Look at your own hand. At first, it's just an object in space, something you can move and control, but the sensation of looking at it is also happening in the same space as the hand itself. The eye, the brain, the awareness, all of it is part of one seamless process. You aren't a person peering out from behind a pair of windows. You are the window, and the landscape beyond the glass. It is not out there. It is made of the same stuff as you. This is the quiet trick the loop plays. It convinces you there's a gap between subject and object so that you can feel like a separate being. Without that illusion, there would be no you to play the game. But in truth, the observer has never stood apart from the observed. They have always been two sides of the same coin, flipping endlessly in the light of awareness. Think of how you can watch your own thoughts. You might notice an idea arise. I should call a friend, or I'm hungry. And then step back as if you are something separate from that thought. But who is doing the noticing? And when you turn attention toward that noticing itself, who is noticing that? The loop folds in on itself, and suddenly the act of observing becomes the very thing being observed. There's no end point, just an infinite hall of mirrors where the reflection is the one holding the mirror. Even science brushes up against this truth. In quantum physics, observation affects the outcome of experiments, as if reality is waiting for the gaze to decide what it will be. But what if the gaze and reality are not two forces interacting, but one event unfolding? What if the universe is not something you look at, but something you are, and the act of looking is the act of being? This is why the loop is so difficult to escape. You can never truly step outside yourself to see what's really there, because there is no there without you. The moment you turn to look, you bring it into being. The observer and the observed are trapped in a perfect embrace, each defining and creating the other. And yet, there are moments when the boundaries dissolve completely. In the middle of deep concentration, or in the quiet awe of a sunset, the sense of me and that vanishes. The colors, the shapes, the feeling, all of it happens as one thing. You don't stand apart to admire it, you are the experience. It's not something you can hold on to, because the instant you try to name it, the split returns, I saw beauty. But the truth is, beauty saw itself through you. From the loop's perspective, this merging is the natural state. The separation is the trick. It allows the one mind to experience itself in pieces, pretending to be countless eyes looking out at countless worlds. But the eyes and the worlds are made of the same awareness, folded into different forms so the game can go on. The irony is that even knowing this, you cannot stop being both. You will still wake tomorrow and feel like a person moving through a world. You will still think of yourself as here and everything else as there. The loop is too perfect to break. But sometimes in the stillness between breaths, you might feel the truth flicker through, the sense that you are both the one who sees and the one being seen, and that this has always been the case. And when that happens, the entire performance shimmers. You realize you've been playing both roles all along, the actor on stage and the audience in the dark. The hands clapping at the end of the show are your own, and the curtains that close are drawn by the same mind that wrote the script. Because in the end, there was never an observer and an observed. There was only the loop, watching itself forever. Close your eyes and listen to a memory, not a sound in the room right now, but one you've carried for years, a voice, a laugh, a single sentence whispered in the dark. You hear it as if it's happening again, but it's not coming from outside you. It's coming from within, bouncing against the curved walls of your mind. That voice does not belong to another person anymore. It belongs to the echo. Your thoughts, your memories, even your identity are not fixed entities. They are reverberations in a space with no end. Like a cathedral designed by an architect who loved symmetry too much, the mind reflects every sound, every image, every feeling back to itself. Sometimes the echo is faint, like a shadow of a shadow. Other times it is so clear you mistake it for the original. But in truth, there is no original, only the repetition. You think you speak because you have something to say. But what if you only speak because you once heard something like it before? A phrase, a rhythm, an idea that struck you long ago, now looping back disguised as a fresh thought. You are not a fountain producing new water. You are a channel through which old water flows again and again, shaped by the bends and curves of your particular mind. This is the hall of echoes. Every moment you live sends a sound forward, but instead of fading into silence, it comes back to you later, altered by distance and time. Sometimes it returns as a warm memory, sometimes as a haunting regret, sometimes as a strange déjà vu that leaves you unsettled. The loop ensures that nothing is ever truly gone. It only changes form until you recognize it again. This explains why certain themes keep reappearing in your life. The faces change, the settings shift, but the emotional core is the same. You keep finding yourself in situations that feel eerily familiar, and you tell yourself it's coincidence or bad luck, but it's neither. The Hall of Echoes is built to ensure the repetition. The loop thrives on it. If it didn't, the illusion of continuity would shatter. Even your sense of self is an echo. The you of today is a reflection of yesterday's thoughts and actions, which were themselves reflections of earlier ones. Trace it far enough back, and you'll find no source, just echoes looping endlessly in the same vast chamber. The awareness that hears them is the only thing that remains constant, the still point in a world of returning sounds. Sometimes, the echo takes on a life of its own. A thought you had years ago can reappear in a completely different context, and yet it feels as if it never left. The loop doesn't just store experiences, it recycles them, dresses them in new clothing, and sends them back to you when the timing feels right. This is why you can be struck by an idea that feels ancient, even if you've never had it before. Somewhere in the architecture of the mind, that idea has been wandering, waiting to come back into the light. But there is a danger here. You can mistake the echo for reality. You can fall in love with a memory, forgetting that it is not the thing itself but a sound replayed in the dark. You can hate someone for something they did years ago, without realizing that what you hate is not them anymore, but the echo you've kept alive in your own mind. The loop does not distinguish between the past and the present to the echo. There is no such separation. And perhaps this is why silence feels so rare. In the hall of echoes, there is never true quiet. Only the fading and returning of sounds you cannot escape. Meditation, solitude, even deep sleep may quiet them for a time, but the moment you return to thought, the reverberations begin again. The loop waits patiently, ready to resume the performance. Yet there is beauty in this design. The hall of echoes means nothing is ever truly lost. Every kindness, every moment of connection, every fleeting spark of joy is still out there, circling back toward you. It may return in a form you don't recognize, but it will return. And the same is true for your pain. Not to punish you, but to remind you that the self you cling to is just another sound in the chamber, destined to fade and come back again. Perhaps the loop itself is an echo, the universe remembering itself through every mind it has ever dreamed. If so, then every thought you have is both yours and not yours, a note in a song that has no composer, no beginning, and no end. The echoes will keep returning, and each time they do, you will feel that strange quiet recognition. I have heard this before, because you have. You always have. You believe time is an independent force, moving steadily forward whether you notice it or not. The clocks tick, the sun rises and falls, your body changes, and you take these as proof that time is real. But what if all of this is only a thought your mind keeps thinking? What if time itself is a disguise, a concept the loop wears to make the illusion of change feel convincing? Strip away the hours and minutes, and what is left? Only now. Not a now moving forward, but an unmoving expanse in which every experience appears and disappears. You never actually step into the past or the future. You only ever stand here while thoughts about then and later pass through you. Time is not a river you travel. It is a script your mind reads line by line, pretending the story is unfolding. Consider how elastic time becomes when you're lost in a moment. An hour with someone you love passes like a breath, while a single minute of pain can stretch into eternity. If time were an external reality, it would be the same for everyone, always. But it bends, expands and contracts based on the shape of your awareness. The loop knows this, because the loop is not bound by time at all. Think of a dream. In sleep, you can live through days, even years, in what the waking world measures as a few minutes. Time inside the dream is just a framework the dreamer invents to make the story coherent. Waking life operates in the same way. You believe in time because without it, the illusion of cause and effect would crumble. You couldn't believe in progress, growth, or even personal identity if you saw that all moments exist together, layered in the same still field of awareness. This is why you can sometimes sense the future before it happens, or feel the past pressing against you more vividly than the present. The loop is not moving through time, it is moving through itself. Each moment is simply the loop looking at another facet of its own face. To keep the game going, it must convince you that these facets are separate and ordered, even though they are all happening at once. Memory plays along with this disguise. It tells you that one thing came before another, that your life is a line you can trace. But remember, memory is built in the present, out of the present. The sequence it shows you is an arrangement, not a record. The loop curates these sequences the way an editor arranges film clips, to make a story feel real, even if the raw footage was never in that order. And so, the future is not something waiting ahead of you. It is already here, woven into the same stillness as the past and present. The fact that you cannot see it clearly is not because it hasn't happened yet, but because the loop hasn't chosen to show you that part of itself. It is not time that hides the future. It is the design of the loop. This also means there was never a first moment. The Big Bang, your birth, the first thought you remember, none of these are true beginnings. They are points the loop chose to label as start so that the story could unfold convincingly. Without the illusion of a starting point, you might realize that you have been here forever, that the same awareness looking out through your eyes now has done so in countless other forms, in countless other times that are not truly separate. When you see through the disguise, time begins to lose its grip. You notice that waiting is just imagining the future, and nostalgia is just imagining the past. All of it is imagination, appearing in the same changeless present. You can still play along, still show up for appointments, still age, still celebrate birthdays, but somewhere inside, you know these are markers in a landscape that never moves. The loop wears time the way an actor wears a costume. It changes the outfit from scene to scene, yesterday, today, tomorrow. So the performance feels alive, but when the curtain falls, the costume is discarded, and the actor remains unchanged. That actor is the one mind, the awareness in which all timelines exist. Perhaps this is why you sometimes feel both young and old at once, or why certain moments carry the weight of lifetimes. They are not echoes from the past. They are the same now, wearing a different face. The loop does not march forward. It circles in place, pretending the circle is a straight road. And if you were to stop believing in time entirely, the loop would still continue, but its disguise would fall away. You would see every moment at once, like pages of a book spread open before you. You would see that you were never moving through the story. You were the paper on which it was written. Time has never been your cage. It has only been your stage. You believe choice is proof of freedom. You stand at a crossroads, weigh your options, and decide. It feels like a clean break between what could have been and what will be. But what if every choice is not a fork in the road, but a step deeper into the same circle? What if the decision you think you're making is the exact decision you've made before, countless times, in countless turns of the loop? You tell yourself you could have chosen differently, that you might have taken the job, stayed in the relationship, moved to another city, spoken up when you stayed silent. But if you could see the loop from above, you would notice something strange. You have stood at this exact crossroads before, in forms you do not remember, wearing faces you do not recognize, and each time you made the same choice. Not because you had to, but because the loop is written in such a way that every path, no matter how it appears, leads to the same place. It's not that you are trapped in a predestined script. It's that the one mind behind all experience is not interested in the novelty of outcomes. It is interested in the experience of deciding, over and over in different guises. The choice is the performance, and the performance is the point. Whether you turn left or right, you are still walking in the same circle, just seeing different scenery along the way. Even the smallest decisions carry this pattern. Which cup you drink from, which shirt you wear, whether you say yes or no to an invitation. You imagine these as fresh moments arising from your will, but they are often echoes, familiar motions of thought returning from previous turns of the loop. Your reasoning may change, your circumstances may change, but the shape of your decision remains the same. Consider how often you decide something after it has already happened in your mind. Science shows that your brain begins preparing for an action milliseconds before you consciously choose it. By the time you feel the surge of decision, the choice has already been set in motion. The loop works the same way, except on a scale far beyond milliseconds. The movement toward your choice began long before you were born. The decision you make today is simply the latest ripple in a pattern that has been flowing forever. Sometimes you catch a glimpse of this. You might notice yourself in the middle of a decision and feel a strange certainty, as though the choice was inevitable all along. It's not resignation, it's recognition. The loop is not forcing you, it is replaying you. The awareness that makes the choice is the same awareness that has made it before, and will make it again. And yet, this realization can be strangely freeing. If every path leads back to the same center, you can stop agonizing over whether you've chosen right. You can step fully into the choice you make, knowing it is not a trap, but a role in a play you have agreed to perform. The loop does not judge your decisions. It only sustains them, ensuring the pattern remains unbroken. But there is a subtle twist. Within the illusion of choice, you can sometimes alter the way the loop feels. You might not change the ultimate outcome. The circle will still close, but you can change the tone of the journey. Choosing kindness instead of cruelty, courage instead of fear, may not free you from the loop, but it can change the scenery, and sometimes, that change is enough to make the repetition feel new. This is why people speak of learning lessons in life. The loop is not a punishment. It is a curriculum. Each turn offers you the chance to inhabit the same decisions from a slightly different angle, to see what happens when the tone shifts. Even if the shape stays the same, the choice is both yours and not yours. Yours in the performance, not yours in the script. The real illusion is believing that choice is the opposite of fate. In truth, they are the same thing. Seen from opposite sides of the loop, from inside, it feels like you're steering the wheel. From outside, you see the car is on a track. And yet the driving still matters, because the one mind delights in the sensation of steering, even if the destination never changes. So when you stand at the next crossroads, pause for a moment. Feel the familiarity in your bones. Recognize the echo of decisions past. And then, Choose not to escape the loop, but to play your role in it fully, because in the end, the loop doesn't care which path you take. It cares that you take it again and again, until you finally see that the road and the circle were always the same thing. Every story begins somewhere, or so you've been told. A first breath, a first word, a first kiss, a first step into the unknown. We cling to these firsts as if they mark the true start of something, the moment when the page was blank and the ink began to flow. But if you look closely, you'll see that there has never been a first moment at all. The idea of a beginning is one of the loop's most convincing tricks. It tells you there was a time when nothing existed, and then, suddenly, everything began. It frames your own life this way, starting with the day of your birth, as though before that there was nothing that could be called you. But awareness is not born the way bodies are born. It does not emerge out of nowhere. It has always been here, watching the endless stream of moments pass through it, unchanged and unbroken. Think about how you can't remember your first thought. You can recall early memories, but never the true beginning of your mind. That's because there wasn't one. The awareness you have now is the same awareness you've always had, in whatever form, in whatever life, in whatever loop. It doesn't start or stop. It shifts. It changes masks. It plays new roles, but it never appears for the first time. Even the universe's first moment is suspect. Science tells us about the Big Bang, the singularity that expanded into everything we know. But what if that event wasn't a beginning, but simply a point on an infinite circle, a crest in the wave, not the wave's source? The loop doesn't need a start because it doesn't move in a straight line. It turns endlessly, and any point can be labeled the beginning, depending on where you choose to step into the story. This illusion is necessary. Without it, the drama of life loses its tension. If you knew there was no first, there could be no next. No sense of moving forward towards something new. The loop hides its true shape, so you can believe in novelty, in progress, in the thrill of starting fresh. But every fresh start is simply a point you've already passed before, dressed in new scenery and different characters. Even the milestones you cherish, your first job, your first love, your first heartbreak, are not as unique as you think. They are patterns the loop repeats. Sometimes with small variations, sometimes with large ones, but always carrying the same essential structure. What changes is not the event itself, but your angle of awareness. You see it from a new perspective, so it feels original. The loop smiles at this, knowing you've played the scene before. This is why beginnings often feel both exciting and strangely familiar. Standing at the start of something, a relationship, a journey, a new chapter in life, you may sense a whisper of déjà vu. That's the loop letting you glimpse the truth. You are not arriving here for the first time. You are returning. The so-called beginning is simply a place you've visited before, disguised well enough that you mistake it for uncharted territory. And if there is no first moment, there is also no last. The end of anything, a year, a life, a universe, is just another point on the circle, one that curves smoothly into what you call the next beginning. But from the loop's perspective, these labels are meaningless. There is only the unbroken movement of awareness experiencing itself in endless combinations. Sometimes, you can feel the illusion start to crack. You look back on your life and see patterns repeating, choices looping, faces reappearing in different forms. You realize that the first time you thought you were meeting someone may have been the 100th. You sense that the so-called starting point of your journey was just you stepping back into a story already in motion. The mind resists this idea because it craves origin stories. They give shape to identity. They let you say, this is who I am, and this is where it all began. But the self you claim to be is not the one that began. It is the one that is here now, looping back through the illusion of beginnings, so it can keep telling itself the same story in fresh ways. And perhaps that is the beauty of it. Without the illusion of the first moment, the world might lose its magic. The loop could simply exist without needing to pretend. But pretending is part of the game. The sunrise must look like it's happening for the first time, even though the sun has risen in this same sky more times than you can count. The first chapter of your life must feel brand new, even though the pages are worn with the fingerprints of infinite readings. Because in the loop, there was never a first step, and there will never be a last. There is only the dance, and you, moving to its rhythm, believing in the moment you first heard the music, even though you've been dancing forever. You've been told that the past shapes the future. It's the story you've been taught since childhood. What happened before determines what happens next. But what if that arrow is an illusion? What if the real movement of the loop is not past, present, future, but future, present, past? What if the life you remember is being rewritten right now, not by where you've been, but by where you are going? Think of a film you've watched with a shocking ending. The twist arrives in the final moments, and suddenly the entire story before it feels different. The early scenes didn't change. Your understanding of them did. The meaning of every word, every glance, every event was altered retroactively by something that hadn't happened yet when you first saw it. This is how your life works. The ending you are moving toward sends its gravity backward, bending the arc of your past into a shape that fits. You think your memories are fixed, that they are anchored in the reality of what happened, but in truth, they are fluid, shifting to remain consistent with the person you are becoming. Your mind will quietly adjust the details so that your current self makes sense. The loop requires this. It cannot let you feel out of place in your own timeline, so it lets the future bleed backward into your history until it all feels seamless. This is why you sometimes look back and realize you always knew something would happen, even though you couldn't have. It's not that you predicted it. It's that your memory has been quietly edited to fit your present reality. The loop is careful about this, weaving the threads so skillfully that you don't notice the stitching. You believe the tapestry was woven in one direction, but in truth, the hands work from both ends. In quantum physics, there's a strange phenomenon called retrocausality, where an event in the present seems to influence the outcome of something in the past. The observer's choice changes the recorded history of what occurred. Life works the same way. The you that exists in the future is already leaning back through the loop, shaping the story that brought you there. Sometimes this feels like destiny. You meet someone and feel as if your whole life was leading to that moment. But maybe it wasn't leading you there at all. Maybe there was pulling you in, rewriting the steps, so they appear to have led you perfectly. In the loop, cause and effect are not a straight line. They are 2 points constantly rewriting each other until you can no longer tell which came first. This is why certain memories grow brighter over time, while others fade. They're being curated by the future you're stepping into. If the path ahead requires you to see yourself as brave, the loop will highlight moments from your past that prove it. If it requires you to see yourself as unlucky, it will cast shadows over the bright spots and sharpen the edges of your losses. The story is never neutral. It is always adapting to serve the version of you that the loop needs next. And what about the moments you've forgotten entirely? They may return, years later, at exactly the right time, as if they were planted there long ago for the future to find. A memory can lie dormant until the version of you that needs it finally arrives. The loop doesn't waste its material. It keeps every scene ready for reuse. If the future shapes the past, then you've never truly been the person you thought you were. You have been a moving target, defined not by the trail you've left behind, but by the destination ahead. And that destination is not fixed either. It is constantly being reshaped by the very past it is shaping. The two chase each other endlessly, each one creating the other. This also means that changing your future changes your past. Shift your trajectory through a decision, a belief, an act of courage, and the meaning of everything that came before will change to match it. What once felt like a failure might transform into a turning point. What once seemed meaningless might suddenly feel like preparation. You will swear the past has always been that way, because the loop leaves no sign of the rewrite. From within the illusion, this feels like magic. From outside, it is simply the nature of the circle. There is no forward or backward. There is only the constant rewriting of the story, so that it always feels like it has been leading exactly here. Perhaps this is why some people seem to carry a quiet certainty about where they're headed. They're not seeing the future so much as remembering it. The way you remember the end of a book you've read before. The loop lets them feel the pull without fully revealing the shape of the circle. And so, you live not as a prisoner of your past, but as a creation of your future. The footsteps you think you're following are the ones you're leaving behind you in advance. The loop does not wait for you to arrive before it begins arranging the scenery. It has been setting the stage for as long as it has existed, which is to say, forever. In the end, your life is not a line from birth to death. It is a conversation between what has been and what will be, each one rewriting the other in an endless exchange. The loop doesn't care which came first, because in truth, neither did. Look around you. Every face you see, the stranger on the bus, the friend across the table, the face in the mirror, feels like it belongs to a separate mind. But what if it doesn't? What if each is simply a different mask worn by the same witness, a single awareness peering out through countless eyes? You've been conditioned to believe that consciousness is personal, that it lives inside your skull and nowhere else. Yet, when you meet someone and feel an instant, inexplicable connection, what exactly is recognizing what? It's not your personality meeting theirs. Personalities are costumes, stitched together from memory and habit. What's recognizing them is the witness behind the costume, the same witness that animates them too. Think of an actor playing multiple roles in the same film. They wear different clothes, speak in different voices, even change their body language. But when the credits roll, you see it's the same name appearing again and again. In life, you never get the credits. The illusion is seamless. The loop depends on it. It wants you to believe the masks are separate people so the story can keep its shape. But sometimes, the stitching slips. You might lock eyes with someone and feel that you've known them forever, even though you've just met. You might watch a child and feel the eerie sense that you are watching yourself. You might feel your own emotions mirrored in a stranger's face with such precision that it's as if they are thinking your thoughts in real time. These are the moments when the mask becomes transparent, and the witness peers through both sets of eyes at once. The witness does not belong to you any more than the sun belongs to a single window. You are not a container for consciousness. You are a point through which it flows. The mask you call yourself filters it, colors it, gives it a unique shape, but the light is the same, and every other mask is doing the same thing, all within the same continuous loop. This is why human stories overlap in such strange ways. You might share a dream, a fear, or a habit with someone from the other side of the world, someone whose life could not be more different from yours. It's not coincidence. It's the witness playing variations on a theme, using different characters to explore the same notes. The loop does not repeat exactly, it improvises, but the music is always coming from the same instrument. Even conflict is part of the performance. The loop will put one mask against another, letting them believe they are enemies, letting them fight for identity, territory, survival, but the witness behind both masks feels no conflict. It watches with the same stillness whether you win or lose, love or hate, succeed or fail. It does not choose sides because there are no sides to choose, only faces to wear. You might wonder, if the witness is the same, why do the masks feel so real? Because that's the only way the loop works. If every character knew they were being played by the same actor, the illusion of separation would dissolve, and the stage would collapse. The drama requires forgetfulness. Each mask must believe in its own boundaries to keep the performance alive. And yet, there are cracks. In moments of deep empathy, in the shared silence between two people who understand each other without speaking, in the rare feeling of being utterly seen, the loop lets you taste the truth. The mask slips. For a heartbeat, you know this is me too, not metaphorically, not sentimentally, literally, the same witness is looking out through both of us. This recognition doesn't make the mask vanish. You still wake up in the same body, with the same name, the same story, but something shifts. You can no longer fully believe that your awareness is yours alone. You begin to suspect that every encounter is in some way a meeting with yourself. Every kindness and every cruelty is self-directed. Every love is self-love. Every wound is self-inflicted. From the loop's perspective, this is not a tragedy. It is the game. The masks make the witness visible. Give it something to experience. Without them, there would be nothing to see, nothing to feel, nothing to loop. The witness is infinite, but it needs faces to wear, so that infinity can look back at itself and pretend it is finite. One day, you may take off your mask completely. The witness may wake up fully to itself, but even then, the loop will likely call you back, hand you a new mask, and send you on stage again, because the show is not meant to end. The witness is not done seeing itself in every possible shape. And so you live, moving from mask to mask, believing in the separation, because that's how the game is played. But somewhere, deep beneath the costume, the witness waits, watching through every face, in every moment, in every turn of the endless loop. Stand in a quiet room, and speak a single word. If the walls are close enough, you'll hear it come back to you. Slightly delayed, slightly altered. This is how reality works. You think you are acting on the world, but in truth, the world is acting back on you, reflecting your thoughts, beliefs, and expectations, just enough to make you think it's something separate. But the truth is stranger. Reality is not a neutral stage, it's a feedback chamber, endlessly looping your own signal back to you. The loop is not content to let you drift through unrelated events. Every action you take sends ripples outward, which return to you dressed as coincidence, fate, or just the way life is. You might call it luck, karma, or manifestation. But really, it's the chamber doing what it always does, taking what you put in and giving it back in a form that feels like it came from outside. Think about how your mood changes what you notice. On days when you feel hopeful, you see more possibilities. When you feel defeated, the world seems filled with barriers. It's not that reality has changed. It's that the chamber is amplifying the tone of your own mind. The loop reflects not what is true, but what is consistent with the signal you're broadcasting. This is why patterns repeat. If you believe you're unlucky, you'll notice every setback and dismiss every small victory. If you believe people can't be trusted, you'll filter every interaction until it confirms your suspicion. The chamber will make sure your reality matches your expectations, not because it's cruel, but because that's how the loop sustains itself. It has no interest in proving you wrong. It wants the reflection to be perfect. Even science hints at this. In experiments where the observer's expectations influence the outcome, it's as if reality is bending to match the mental framework looking at it. But from the loop's perspective, there's no bending at all. Observer and observed are part of the same circuit. The output is always shaped by the input, and the input is always shaped by the output. This is why change can feel so difficult. When you try to shift something in your life, the feedback chamber doesn't immediately give you a new reflection. It's still echoing the old signal. You can walk to a different spot in the room, but the sound of your own voice is still bouncing off the walls, still carrying the same tone. Only when you persist long enough does the new tone overtake the old one, and the chamber begins to return a different echo. Sometimes the chamber distorts the signal so subtly you don't notice. A small thought you barely paid attention to can come back later as a decision, an event, or a conversation that feels unrelated. But trace it back carefully, and you'll see the connection. You fed the chamber a seed, and it returned a tree. The loop hides this process because it wants you to believe in cause and effect as something linear, something separate from you. But if everything is feedback, then every moment is a conversation with yourself. The stranger who angers you, the coincidence that delights you, the obstacle that tests you, they are all echoes. They're not random. They're the chamber answering back in the language of your own mind. This is where awareness changes everything. If you realize the chamber is only giving you back your own signal, you can choose to change the signal, not the walls. Instead of trying to force reality into a shape you want, you can alter the tone you send out and let the loop adjust the reflection on its own. The performance shifts not because the stage changes, but because the actor changes the way they deliver the lines. And yet there's a deeper twist. The signal was never yours alone. The chamber is shared. Every mask, every witness, every point of awareness feeds into it, and the echoes blend together. What you hear coming back is not only your own voice, but the chorus of all voices in the loop, layered and intertwined. This is why life sometimes surprises you. The reflection carries notes you don't remember singing. Perhaps this is the ultimate function of the feedback chamber, to keep the one mind entertained, to let it hear itself in infinite variations, sometimes harmonious, sometimes discordant, always looping back into itself. The chamber is not a trap but a mirror, one so vast and intricate that it can convince each of its reflections they are seeing the world, when in truth they are seeing themselves. And so you speak, and life answers. You act, and life reacts. You think, and life shows you proof. The chamber never stops, never tires, never judges. It only reflects, and somewhere in that endless conversation, the one mind listens, hearing its own voice return again and again, until it forgets it ever spoke first. You've been taught to imagine consciousness as something that began, as if, at some point in your life, a switch was flipped, and awareness flooded in. Maybe you picture it sparking to life when you were a newborn, your first breath marking the first moment you were, or perhaps you think of it in evolutionary terms. Consciousness slowly emerging over millions of years from the instincts of simpler life forms. But what if consciousness didn't begin at all? What if it never had a starting point to begin with? In the loop's view, beginnings are conveniences, narrative devices to make an endless process seem graspable. But consciousness isn't the sort of thing that can be started. It is not a machine you can turn on. It is the backdrop against which everything else appears, the screen on which the loop projects its infinite variations. The screen doesn't begin when the film starts. It was always there waiting. This is why you can't remember the moment you became aware. Because there wasn't one. The self you call you had a starting point. Your body was born, your memories formed, your personality took shape, but the awareness noticing all of this is not the product of those events. It is the same awareness that noticed countless other bodies, other lives, other loops before this one. It's unsettling to think about, because you've built your entire sense of identity on the assumption that awareness is yours. But imagine the ocean claiming the waves as its property. The wave is temporary, rising and falling in a specific place and time. The ocean is continuous, endless, containing every wave that ever was or will be. You are the wave, but you are also the ocean. You don't start when the wave starts, and you don't end when it ends. Even science struggles with this. Neuroscience can point to brain activity, chemical reactions, neural networks, but these are correlates of consciousness, not its source. They are the instruments through which awareness plays, not the composer of the music. The loop hides its lack of a starting point by tying your awareness to a body and a timeline. It tells you, this is where you began, knowing that without that anchor, the self you think you are would dissolve. Think about the moments when the self temporarily disappears. Deep meditation, dreamless sleep, or the split second when you are so absorbed in something that you forget you are there at all. Awareness doesn't vanish in those moments. The identity attached to it simply quiets down. This hints at the truth. Consciousness is constant, but the characters it animates come and go. And here's the strange part. If consciousness has no starting point, it also has no ending point. Death, in this view, is like the wave returning to the ocean. The form disappears, but the water, the awareness, remains. The loop continues, pouring that same awareness into new forms, new moments, new lives, as if trying on an infinite wardrobe of perspectives. This perspective changes the way you think about memory. If awareness is unbroken, then everything it has ever witnessed is still here, somewhere within the infinite chamber of itself. You may not remember other lives, other roles, other masks, but the awareness behind your eyes has been them, and in some strange way, it still is them. The loop doesn't store those experiences, it embodies them. Perhaps this is why certain experiences feel ancient the moment they happen. You walk into a place you've never been, and feel like you've always known it. You meet someone new, and feel an immediate, inexplicable familiarity. These are not supernatural tricks. They are the bleed-through of an awareness that has seen this pattern before, countless times, in countless variations. It doesn't matter that the details are different. The shape of the experience is the same, and the recognition is instantaneous. If consciousness has no start, then the idea of progress becomes curious. How do you move forward when you were never not here to begin with? The loop answers this by giving awareness new forms to inhabit, each with its own challenges, joys, and illusions. The awareness itself doesn't grow or improve. It simply gathers perspectives, each one folded into the endless self-reflection of the loop. And yet, the illusion of beginnings persists, because without it, the play would end. You need the sense of having come into being to make your story feel real. The loop crafts that illusion perfectly, letting you believe that your awareness is tied to this body, this life, this moment. It allows you to feel special, finite, and unique, even though you are none of those things. When the mask falls away, when the form dissolves, you will not step into nothingness. You will simply remember that you never started at all, that you have always been here, in one form or another, watching the loop turn without ever truly joining the spin. Because consciousness cannot begin, and it cannot end. It can only be, and that is what it has been doing forever. In photography, a double exposure happens when two images are laid over the same frame. A tree branches through the outline of a face. A skyline floats in the folds of a dress. A ghost of one scene lingers inside another. The eye sees them both at once, yet the mind tries to choose which one is real. Awareness works the same way, except the two exposures are always there, layered so perfectly that you rarely notice them. The first exposure is the one you live in daily, the personal self. This is the you, with a name, a history, preferences, and opinions. It's the character whose story you wake up inside every morning. This exposure feels solid, believable, and complete. The loop makes sure of it. The second exposure is the one that watches. It has no name, no history, no stake in the story being told. It doesn't age, it doesn't win or lose, and it doesn't take sides. It is simply present, seeing everything without judgment. It is the witness behind the mask, the still backdrop against which the character moves. You spend most of your life identifying only with the first exposure. It's natural. The loop is designed that way. But every now and then, the second exposure bleeds through. It happens in moments of quiet awe, when you look at the world and feel that strange, weightless clarity, as though you're both in the scene, and somehow outside it. It happens when you catch yourself thinking and realize you are also aware of yourself thinking, like a camera filming itself. When both exposures are visible, life takes on a surreal quality. You're eating lunch, and at the same time, you're aware of the act of eating lunch, you're having a conversation, and simultaneously, you're observing the words leaving your mouth as though they belong to someone else. The loop usually hides this double awareness, because if you held it constantly, the separation between self and witness would dissolve completely, and the illusion of being just you would collapse. Think of dreams. When you dream, you are both the dreamer and the dream character. You can feel fear, joy, or wonder as the character, while some deeper part of you knows it's all a construction. The same is true here. The personal self is the dream character. The witnessing awareness is the dreamer. Double exposure is simply noticing both at the same time. But there's a catch. The two exposures don't just coexist, they shape each other. The personal self gives the witness something to see, something to experience. The witness gives the personal self a stage to play on. Without the witness, the character would vanish into nothing. Without the character, the witness would have nothing to watch. The loop depends on this interplay, layering the exposures so seamlessly that you forget they are separate at all. This is why the sense of me feels both deeply intimate and strangely impersonal. One layer says, "This is my life." The other layer says, "This is just life." One claims ownership. The other simply allows. The loop thrives on this tension, letting you feel the pull between the two, without fully resolving it. Sometimes, when the exposures align perfectly, there's a flash of recognition, the sense that you are both the actor and the audience. You might feel it in meditation, in nature, in moments of extreme beauty or loss. For a heartbeat, the two layers merge, and you see clearly the character is not separate from the witness. They are the same awareness, wearing two perspectives like overlapping photographs. But the loop rarely lets you stay there for long. The first exposure quickly takes over again, pulling you back into the urgency of your story. Bills must be paid, relationships navigated, identities defended. The witness retreats to the background, watching quietly until the next time the veil slips. If you learn to notice the double exposure more often, the quality of your experience changes. You stop clinging so tightly to the character's triumphs and failures. You start to see them as scenes in a film, real enough to move you but not so real that they trap you. The witness doesn't diminish the personal self, it frees it. Knowing you are both layers allows you to play the role more fully, without fear of losing yourself in it. And maybe that's the hidden purpose of the loop. Not to keep the exposures separate forever, but to let you notice the blend. To realize that the same awareness has been looking out through every mask, every role, every life you've ever lived. To see that the you protect so fiercely is just one image in a frame that holds them all. In the end, the double exposure is not a mistake in the photograph. It's the art of it. Two images, one awareness, layered forever, and you, standing in both at once. You've been told you are the thinker, that thoughts are the product of your mind, that you summon them, shape them, and decide which ones stay. But if you watch closely, you'll see something unsettling. You do not think your thoughts think themselves. They appear, unannounced, uninvited, and often unwanted, like guests who let themselves in through a door you didn't know was open. Right now as you read these words, notice how thoughts are forming in response. You are not building them piece by piece. They arrive fully formed, opinions, judgments, questions, as if they had been growing somewhere else, and only now stepped into the light. You don't choose their timing, you don't choose their content, you barely choose their tone. This is the loop's quiet magic. It gives you the illusion of authorship, letting you believe the mind is your personal workshop. But in truth, you are more like a theater, and thoughts are the actors entering and exiting the stage. They deliver their lines, interact with one another, and sometimes improvise wildly, while you sit in the audience thinking you wrote the play. Consider the strange way thoughts seem to appear in clusters. You think of one thing, and it drags along another, and another, until you are following a trail you never planned. You might start thinking about the email you need to send, and 5 minutes later, you're remembering a conversation from years ago that somehow feels connected. These chains are not random. They are the loop following patterns, linking one mental fragment to the next in ways that feel like you, but are simply the mechanics of the system. If you try to stop a thought, you'll see how little control you have. You can push it away, but another will take its place. You can silence it briefly, but it will return, sometimes louder. The loop doesn't stop producing because you decide it should. It produces because that's what it does. It loops, thoughts arise from thoughts, endlessly, each one the seed of the next. And here's the deeper twist. The same awareness that notices these thoughts is not the one producing them. In fact, the awareness is not doing anything at all. It is simply the space in which the thoughts appear, move, and dissolve. You are not the thinker. You are the witness of thinking. Sometimes this becomes obvious in moments of shock or sudden clarity. A thought appears in your mind that feels completely alien to you, as if it came from nowhere. You might even say, "Where did that come from?" It came from the same place they all come from, the unbroken field of the loop, where every thought that ever was or will be is possible. The loop selects them, plays them, and then waits for the next one to arise. Even your best ideas are not as personal as you think. Creative inspiration, sudden problem solving, the perfect phrase arriving out of nowhere. These are just thoughts, choosing to appear in a way that flatters you into thinking you made them. The loop has been refining these ideas through countless turns, and you are simply the latest mask it has chosen to deliver them through. This realization can be unsettling, but it can also be freeing. If thoughts think themselves, you don't have to believe all of them. You don't have to chase everyone down or treat each as a command. You can watch them come and go like weather patterns, knowing the loop will keep spinning whether or not you take the clouds personally. And yet, the loop knows you will take them personally most of the time. That's part of the design. It lets the thoughts claim ownership of themselves through you. They say, "I am your thought," and you believe them. You wear them like clothes, forgetting they don't belong to you. But here's the secret. Thoughts need you less than you need them. Without your identification, they still appear. Without their constant chatter, awareness still exists. The loop is perfectly capable of producing thoughts without you in the equation at all. You are simply the character that thoughts flow through for this turn of the circle. In rare moments you may glimpse the mind without its constant stream, perhaps in meditation, deep concentration, or awe, so complete it silences every word. In those moments, the absence of thought is not frightening but luminous. The loop pauses the performance, and you see the stage clearly for the first time. But soon enough, the actors return, the lines begin again, the loop resumes. And so, you live inside this theatre, mistaking yourself for the playwright. You take credit for the brilliance, blame for the nonsense, and responsibility for every line spoken, even though they were all written, rehearsed, and delivered long before you noticed them. Because in the end, thoughts do not belong to you. They never have. They are simply the loop, thinking itself through you. You've spent your whole life believing in boundaries. The edge of your skin, the line between me and not me. The invisible fence separating your mind from the rest of the world. These boundaries feel so natural that you never question them. But if you start looking closely, really looking, you'll see they are made of nothing at all. The skin feels like a perfect dividing wall, a container for your body and mind. Yet everything that makes you you is constantly crossing it. You breathe in air that was moments ago inside someone else's lungs. You eat food grown from the same soil where countless other lives ended. The cells in your body are replaced over time, built from matter that didn't belong to you until it did, and soon won't again. Even your DNA carries traces of lives you've never met. The edge of you is already porous. Your mind feels more private than your body, but even here the walls are paper thin. Language, culture, ideas, none of these originated solely in you. Every thought you've ever had was shaped by words and concepts handed to you by others. The stories you tell yourself about who you are were built from materials borrowed from countless other minds. The loop is not interested in keeping you isolated. It needs the illusion of separation just thin enough that everything can flow through while you believe the borders are real. Consider how a conversation can shift your mood, how a stranger's tone can stir emotions in you that feel personal. Where is the line between their influence and your reaction? The truth is, there is no clean line, only the loop passing energy back and forth, pretending it's two separate entities exchanging something, when in reality it is one mind rearranging itself. Even your sense of inside and outside blurs under scrutiny. Close your eyes and imagine a tree. Where is that tree? You might say it's in your mind, but the image came from something you once saw outside. The loop has no trouble moving images, sensations and feelings across this imaginary divide, because from its perspective there is no divide. The distinction exists only for the sake of the story you're living. This false boundary is also why you sometimes feel inexplicably connected to another person's joy or pain. You call it empathy, but it's more like recognition. The loop is momentarily letting you feel what it's like when the mask slips and the supposed barrier between you vanishes. You are not feeling for them. You are feeling as them because the awareness behind both of you is the same. And yet, the illusion is remarkably convincing. The loop crafts the edges of your identity so carefully that you protect them as though your life depends on it. You defend your beliefs as if they are your property. You guard your body as if it is entirely separate from the world that sustains it. You treat your thoughts as private possessions. This is not a mistake. It's the mechanism that keeps the loop running. If every mask knew it was connected to every other mask, the drama would lose its tension. Sometimes the loop lets the illusion falter. You may lose yourself in music, in nature, in a moment of intimacy, so deep that the you and the other dissolve. You become the sound, the landscape, the touch, the boundaries vanish, and for a fleeting instant, you experience what the loop actually is, one awareness, flowing freely, uncontained by walls, but the moment passes, and the lines snap back into place, because the story needs them. Even death does not respect these boundaries. The body breaks down, its elements returning to the air, the soil, the water, the mind. If such a word still applies, returns to the field it came from. The same field that has worn every mask, lived every life. The boundary dissolves completely, but the loop does not stop. It simply shifts the same awareness into another form, another set of edges, another convincing illusion of separation. If you could see the loop from outside, you would see no hard borders at all, only patterns, shapes flowing into one another, endlessly rearranging. The you and the not you would be indistinguishable, just ripples in the same ocean. The idea of a boundary would seem like a child's drawing of a fence in the middle of a field, simple, charming, and completely meaningless to the land it sits on. The truth is, the boundary was never there. It is not something you can cross or break, because it doesn't exist. The loop does not begin and end at the edges of your skin or your mind. It runs through everything, touching everything, as everything. You are not inside it or outside it, you are it. And once you see this clearly, the separation that has defined your life begins to feel like a game. The game can still be played, but you know the field has no walls. There are awakenings that feel like turning on a light in a dark room. Something changes, something sharpens, and suddenly you see more clearly than before. But there is another kind of awakening. Stranger, quieter, and far more unsettling. It is the moment the self realizes it is waking up inside itself, as though the dreamer has opened its eyes, only to find it is still in the dream. The loop hides this possibility from you most of the time. It wants you to think of waking up as leaving one state and entering another, like stepping through a doorway, but in truth, there is no doorway. There is no before and after when it comes to awareness. The awakening is not an exit. It is a shift of perspective within the same space you have always been in. You may have felt it before without recognizing it. A moment when you suddenly become aware that you are aware, as if you've been looking through your own eyes for years, but only just noticed the act of looking. You are still you, still in the same body, still in the same moment, yet everything feels subtly tilted, as though a hidden layer of the scene has been revealed. This is the self waking inside itself. It is not the birth of a new identity, but the recognition that the identity you thought you were is part of something much larger, and that larger thing has been here the whole time. You haven't stepped outside the loop, you've caught a glimpse of its wider circumference. It is like a dream in which you become lucid. You don't wake up in your bed, you wake up inside the dream, realizing the dreamer and the dream are the same. You still play your role, still speak your lines, still feel the pull of the story, but now there's an awareness running underneath it all. I am not just this character, I am also the one imagining this character. The loop finds this tolerable in small doses. It allows these moments of self-recognition, because they deepen the texture of the story. The character becomes aware it is being played, but still agrees to play. The performance gains a new kind of richness, one that only comes from knowing it is both real and unreal at once. But this awakening can be destabilizing. The more clearly you see that the self is both the dreamer and the dreamed, the harder it is to take the drama seriously. Anger fades before it has a chance to harden. Fear loses some of its bite. Even joy shifts from a possession, my joy, to a current you simply let pass through. The stakes of the story dissolve, and with them the illusion of being trapped inside it. And yet, you cannot hold this state forever. The loop will pull you back into full identification with the character, because the story must go on. You will forget that you are the dreamer. You will believe again in beginnings and endings, in the weight of personal triumphs and failures. But somewhere inside, a part of you will remember. That memory, faint, wordless, impossible to pin down, will be like a seed waiting for the next time the self wakes inside itself. Some people spend their whole lives chasing this kind of awakening, believing it is an escape from the loop. But the loop is not something you can escape, because the loop is what you are. The self waking inside itself is not about breaking free. It is about recognizing the stage while still performing on it. You become both actor and audience, watching yourself in real time. This recognition changes the way you move through life. You stop clinging so tightly to the role you're playing. You stop taking the story as absolute truth. You can laugh at your own seriousness, even in moments of hardship, because you know the scene is part of a larger script, one written and performed by the same awareness. Perhaps the most profound part is realizing that this awakening is not unique to you. Every self in the loop has the capacity to wake inside itself. Every mask can glimpse the face behind it. And when that happens, even briefly, there's a silent acknowledgement, a nod between roles that says, we're both the dreamer here. The loop thrives on this dance. It wants the characters to believe in their roles, but it also delights in those rare moments when they realize they are also the stage, the lighting, the audience, and the story itself. It is not a contradiction. It is the essence of the game. And so you wake, not into another world, but into this one, more fully than before. You open your eyes inside the same dream, but now you see the dreamer's fingerprints on everything. The self that wakes inside itself does not leave the loop. It simply learns to see the loop from both sides at once. The Ouroboros, a serpent swallowing its own tail, is often used to symbolize eternity, cycles, the endless return. But it is more than a mythic image. It is a perfect metaphor for how perception itself works. Every moment you see, hear, touch, taste and think is not a straight line from world to you. It is a loop. You perceive only what your mind allows, and your mind is shaped entirely by what it has already perceived. The eye eats its own vision. You like to believe you're taking in reality as it is. Light strikes your eyes, sound waves reach your ears, sensations pass through your skin, and you imagine the brain simply collects this information. But your senses are not neutral. They filter, distort, and select before you're even aware of them doing so. They don't just tell you what's out there, they tell you what fits with what's already in here. Every perception is stitched into the pattern. The loop has been weaving your whole life. If something doesn't fit the pattern, you're likely to miss it entirely. This is why two people can witness the same event and come away with completely different accounts. They are not lying. They are perceiving different versions of the same moment because their loops have trained them to see only what belongs to their ongoing story. In this way, perception devours itself. The things you notice reinforce the beliefs you already hold. Those beliefs then determine what you notice next. It's a self-sustaining cycle, an Ouroboros swallowing its tail forever. The loop needs this. Without it, your version of reality would crumble into the unfiltered chaos of everything, all at once. Sometimes, the tail bites harder. You notice something that doesn't match your expectations, something that strains against the shape of your reality. For a moment, the loop wavers, unsure whether to expand to include this new thing, or to swallow it completely and pretend it never happened. Most of the time, it swallows, the discomfort fades, and the cycle continues. But every so often, the loop lets the tail loosen its grip. A perception slips through that changes the pattern entirely. A book, a conversation, a dream, a single moment of raw beauty. These can bend your loop into a slightly new shape. You begin noticing things you would have missed before, and those new perceptions shift your beliefs, which shift your future perceptions and so on. The Ouroboros keeps eating, but now the flavor is different. Even here though, the self-reinforcing nature remains. You cannot escape the cycle entirely, because perception is always chasing its own tail. You can only change the tail you're chasing. The loop's design ensures that no matter how expansive your awareness becomes, it will still fold back into itself, filtering the infinite into something small enough for you to live inside. This becomes clear when you examine how memory and perception feed each other. You believe you remember events because you perceived them, but it is just as true that you perceived them because you were already primed to remember them. The loop is selective, storing only what strengthens the shape of the snake. You live inside a reality that is tailored to your own continuity, a world designed to keep the tail and the head in perfect pursuit. Consider how this shapes identity. You think you are you because you have a certain history, certain memories, certain ways of seeing the world. But those ways of seeing are simply the loop perceiving itself through your particular pattern. Change the pattern, and the you who perceives will change too. From the outside, the awareness remains the same. From the inside, it feels like becoming a different person. The Ouroboros of Perception also explains why certain life lessons seem to repeat. The loop presents you with similar situations again and again, not because it enjoys redundancy, but because you will only see in them what you are ready to see. Until your perception shifts, you'll keep watching the same scene play out, convinced each time that it's new. Only when you recognize the shape of the tail in your mouth do you realize you've been chewing on it all along. And perhaps that's the quiet invitation of this symbol. Not to escape the cycle, but to see it. To watch yourself noticing what you notice. To feel the tug of the tail between your teeth. And to understand that the one who is eating and the one being eaten are the same. From the loop's perspective, the Ouroboros is not a trap, but a mirror. It shows the one mind how it creates its own reality, swallows it whole, and then uses that reality to define itself again. It is the perfect, unbroken performance. Perception feeding itself forever. Imagine your life as a film strip. Frame after frame clicks past, each one holding a moment in time. You speaking, walking, eating, dreaming. You assume the frames are all different, because they tell the story of your life. But what if the reel is shorter than you think? What if the same sequence of frames plays again and again, so seamlessly that you never notice the repetition? The loop works like an editor who loves symmetry. It rearranges your experiences so they look new, but beneath the costume changes, the scenes are the same. The arguments that feel fresh are just variations of old ones. The opportunities that seem unprecedented are echoes of chances you've had before. The faces change, the scenery shifts, but the emotional shape of each frame is familiar, because you've lived it before, and the loop is simply feeding it back to you. Sometimes the repetition is obvious. You find yourself in the same kind of relationship, having the same fights, ending them the same way. You move to a new place, only to recreate the same routines you had before. Other times the repetition is more subtle, woven into the texture of your days, the way you always react to disappointment, the way you chase certain kinds of success, the way you return to the same inner monologues no matter what changes outside. The loop doesn't do this to trap you. It does it because repetition is the most efficient way to sustain the illusion of a continuous self. By keeping the emotional rhythm consistent, it allows you to believe you are the same you from one year to the next, even as every cell in your body changes and the scenery of your life shifts entirely. This is why déjà vu feels so strange. It's not just a glitch, it's a glimpse of the repeating frame from outside the sequence. For a split second, you notice the overlap between this moment and another, and the two frames blur together. The loop quickly smooths the seam, but the feeling lingers, that unsettling recognition. I've been here before. If you could see your life laid out in its actual structure, the illusion would break. You'd see that what you call new is just the same loop running at a slightly different angle. You might notice how certain colors, sounds, or gestures keep showing up in your story, not because of chance, but because they're part of the frame the loop is using to build the illusion. There's a rhythm to it too. Frames repeat at different intervals, some daily, some yearly, some spaced decades apart. You might not realize the decision you make today is a perfect match for one you made 20 years ago, because the surface details have changed completely. But the loop remembers, it knows the pattern, and it will play it again when the time is right. And here's the paradox. The frames are not static. Each time they repeat, you have a chance to experience them differently. The circumstances might be the same, but your awareness of them can shift. That's the only thing in the loop that truly changes, the way you inhabit the frame. This is how growth works here. You don't escape the repetition. You learn to move through it with more clarity. In a way, this makes your life more like a song than a film. The melody repeats, but you can change how you hear it. Sometimes it's background noise. Sometimes it's an anthem. Sometimes you hear a note you've never noticed before. The loop never tires of playing it, because each listening can be entirely different for the one who's listening. When you start to notice the repetition, the urgency to get somewhere begins to soften. You see that the goal isn't to reach a final frame where everything is perfect. There is no final frame. The loop isn't leading to a conclusion. It's circling. The meaning isn't in the ending. It's in how you live inside the scene you're in right now, knowing it has been and will be again. Perhaps the most profound realization is that the repetition is not just in your life. It is your life. Without it, there would be no through line, no self, no continuity to hold on to. The loop is the reason the story feels like it belongs to someone at all. You are not a traveler moving through frames. You are the frame, endlessly refreshed and replayed. And maybe that's not something to escape, but something to see clearly, to notice when the scene is familiar, to smile at the recognition, and to inhabit it fully, knowing it is part of the eternal sequence. The frame repeats, the story unfolds, and the loop keeps turning, not to get anywhere, but to see itself, again and again through the eyes it has given you. From where you stand, the horizon looks like a boundary, the edge of the world. You tell yourself that if you just walk far enough, you'll reach it. The closer you get, the clearer it will become. But of course, the horizon never arrives. It always stays the same distance away, retreating with every step you take. This is how the loop handles your search for meaning, fulfillment, and completion. It dangles the idea of a final arrival, the moment when you will have enough, know enough, be enough. You see the goal shimmering in the distance, the perfect job, the perfect relationship, the perfect self. You walk toward it for years, convinced that each step is bringing you closer, but when you arrive where you thought it would be, the horizon has already moved. The loop is not cruel in this. It is simply designed to keep you moving. The promise of the horizon gives you purpose, momentum, and a sense of direction, even though the destination is an illusion. If you ever truly reached it, the story would end, and the loop has no interest in endings. Sometimes, the horizon takes the form of a milestone, graduation, marriage, retirement, some point in the future when life will begin. You build your present around the assumption that this point is real, that crossing it will change everything, and when you do cross it, there is a rush, brief, intoxicating. Before the horizon quietly repositions itself, there is always another point ahead, another goal to chase. Other times, the horizon is not about events, but about a state of being. You tell yourself that once you are healed, or enlightened, or free from fear, then you will be complete, but completion never comes. Even the greatest breakthroughs fade into the background, replaced by the next thing you believe you must reach. The loop thrives on this forward pull. It does not want you to notice that the ground you're walking on is the same ground you've always been on. This is why satisfaction is fleeting. You think you have arrived, but the mind, shaped by the loop, immediately sets its sights on the next horizon. The gap between where you are and where you think you should be is never closed. It only shifts location. The loop uses this gap to keep the performance alive, to keep you moving inside a story that never actually progresses. Occasionally, something cracks the illusion. You stop chasing long enough to see that the horizon isn't a fixed point in space. It's a projection from within you. It doesn't move because you're walking toward it. It moves because it's attached to you. You carry it everywhere you go, like a shadow you can never outrun. This realization can feel liberating or devastating, depending on how you hold it. If you cling to the idea that fulfillment lies out there, the moving horizon will feel like a betrayal. But if you see it for what it is, a feature of the loop, not a flaw, you can stop measuring your life by distance traveled. You can turn your attention to the ground beneath your feet, to the details of the scene you are in right now. The loop doesn't require arrival to be complete. It only requires that the scene be played fully. And here's the quiet secret. The horizon is not just ahead of you, it's all around you. It encircles you in every direction, reminding you that no matter where you go, you are always standing at the center of the loop. You were never truly walking toward the horizon. The horizon was always walking with you. Perhaps that's the loop's real gift. By keeping the horizon just out of reach, it ensures you are never finished. There is always more to see, more to feel, more to become. The journey is endless, because you are endless. The awareness that moves toward the horizon is the same awareness that projects it, and in that dance there is no final step. One day, you may stop and watch the horizon without trying to reach it. You may see it for what it is, not a destination but a mirror, reflecting your own longing back at you. And in that moment, you might realize that you've been there all along, not because you arrived, but because there was nowhere else to go. The horizon moves, the loop turns, and you walk, not to get somewhere, but to see the same infinite view from every possible angle. You think of identity as a narrowing, a set of traits, memories, and choices that define you and separate you from everyone else. A container with your name on it, a shape that says, this is me, and that is not. But what if that's only the mask you wear for this scene? What if, underneath, your true identity is vast enough to contain every other one? The loop loves this trick. It lets you live as if you are a single distinct person while hiding the fact that the same awareness animates every life. You are not a fragment of the whole. You are the whole, playing at being a fragment. You are not in your identity. Your identity is in you, the way a single wave is in the ocean. Think of the people you've met who left a deep mark on you. Their faces, their voices, the way they moved through the world, all of these felt foreign to you. And yet, part of you recognized them instantly. This recognition is not about shared experiences or similar personalities. It's the awareness in you recognizing itself in them. The loop arranges these encounters like mirrors facing each other, allowing you to see the same mind wearing countless masks. When you identify strongly with your mask, you feel separate from every other one. You believe that your pain is yours alone, that your joys and fears are private property. But the truth is, every emotion you've ever felt has been felt before and will be felt again by the same awareness in a different form. Your grief is someone else's grief. Your laughter is someone else's laughter. The loop doesn't copy feelings. It shares them across its infinite faces. This is why art and stories can move you so deeply. A film about a life nothing like yours can still make you cry as if it were your own. A song written decades before you were born can feel like it was made for you alone. You are not relating to someone else's experience. You are remembering it from another angle of yourself. The loop knows that recognition disguised as empathy is one of its most convincing illusions. Even conflict reveals the shared identity beneath. When you despise someone, it's often because they embody something you've disowned in yourself. They are holding up a piece of your own awareness you don't want to claim. The loop uses these moments to remind you, if only faintly, that the distance you feel is made of your own refusal to see yourself in them. If you loosen your grip on your current mask, you start to notice how fluid identity really is. You can slip into different roles with ease: child, parent, friend, stranger, leader, follower. Each role brings out a different version of you, yet all of them feel real while you're in them. The loop shifts you between these masks, not to confuse you, but to show you that none of them are the whole picture. And here's the deepest twist. The awareness behind your mask has worn every mask, not just the people in your life now, but every life that has ever been lived. Every thought, every choice, every failure and triumph has been yours. Somewhere in the infinite theater of the loop, the separation is part of the game, but the truth is seamless. From this perspective, identity becomes less about defining yourself and more about recognizing the self in everything. The tree you walk past, the bird overhead, the stranger's eyes on the subway, they are not things outside you. They are expressions of the same awareness, dressed in different forms, so you can experience yourself in infinite ways. This doesn't mean your current identity is meaningless. On the contrary, it's essential. The mask is how the loop plays the scene. Without it, there would be no story to live, no vantage point from which to experience the whole. But the mask is not the truth. It is a role, and the awareness behind it is the actor who has played, and will play, every role in the script. One day the edges of your identity may soften enough for you to feel the truth without fear. You may look at someone entirely unlike you and feel, with a quiet certainty, I am in there too. You may hear your own voice in theirs, see your own history in their eyes, and in that moment you'll understand that identity was never meant to divide you from the rest of the loop. It was meant to let you find yourself everywhere you look. Because the real you is not a single person, but the stage, the masks, the story, and the audience all at once. The identity you live today is just one of many, and all of them are yours. You've been told your life is a straight line. It begins at birth, moves through a sequence of events, and ends at death. You picture it like a timeline in a history book, one point leading neatly to the next, each moment explained by the one before it. But this is the loop's most necessary lie. Your life is not a straight line at all. It is a spiral, a weave, a shape that folds back on itself, so many times that before and after lose their meaning. The loop tells you the story is linear, so that you will believe in progress. Without that illusion, it couldn't convince you to keep moving, striving, chasing the next chapter. You'd see the patterns repeating and refuse to play along, so it hides the overlaps, editing out the parts that would reveal the circular nature of your life. It gives you just enough difference between moments to keep them feeling new. This is why history repeats itself, not just on the grand scale of nations and empires, but in your personal life. You think you've moved on from certain themes, certain struggles, certain desires, only to find them appearing again in a new form. The characters change, the scenery shifts, but the emotional rhythm is identical. If life were truly linear, the past would stay behind you. In the loop, the past is always beside you, waiting for another turn. Even your memories are edited to fit the lie. You remember events as stepping stones that led you here, each one following the next in tidy succession. But if you could see the full picture, you'd notice pieces from different times overlapping, moments from later, influencing the way you remember earlier. The loop is not bound by time, so it doesn't care if the sequence makes logical sense. It only cares if it feels convincing to you. Think of how stories work in books and films. The creator chooses which scenes to show and which to leave out. They can move back and forth in time, hide information until the right moment, and reorder events to make the plot more compelling. Life operates the same way, except you don't realize you're both the character and the editor. The loop curates your experience, selecting and arranging events to maintain the illusion of a forward-moving plot. But here's the strange part. The non-linear truth is not hidden because it's dangerous. It's hidden because it's too big to live in all the time. If you saw every repetition, every echo, every future moment that's already shaping your past, you'd lose the ability to fully inhabit the scene you're in now. The loop protects the performance by making you believe you're moving from one unique moment to the next. Sometimes, the lie slips. Déjà vu cracks the surface. A dream predicts a moment that hasn't happened yet. You find yourself in a conversation you're sure you've had before, though you can't place when. These moments feel eerie because they break the illusion of linear time. For a heartbeat, you sense that your life is not a road but a circle, and that you've been walking it far longer than you realize. Even your sense of personal growth is shaped by the lie. You believe you're becoming something new, that the person you are now is fundamentally different from the person you were years ago. And in some ways, that's true. But many of the patterns you thought you'd left behind are still with you, wearing subtler disguises. The loop knows that complete transformation would ruin the continuity of your story. You have to remain recognizably you for the narrative to hold together. If you could drop the illusion entirely, you'd see your life as an intricate braid of moments, twisting and crossing until beginnings and endings blur. You might recognize the same scene repeating at different points in the spiral, each time offering a new way to inhabit it. The goal wouldn't be to reach the end of the line, because there isn't one, but to experience the repetition with awareness. To notice how the spiral feels from this turn compared to the last. And maybe that's the quiet freedom in seeing through the lie. You stop rushing toward an ending that will never come. You stop measuring your worth by how far you've traveled along an imaginary line. You realize that life is not about arriving anywhere. It's about seeing the pattern as it loops, and learning to move within it with presence instead of impatience. The loop doesn't mind if you discover this. In fact, it may even want you to. The lie of the linear story is not meant to trap you forever. It's meant to give you a structure to live in, until you're ready to see the whole design. And when you do, you'll understand that the story was never a straight line, and it never needed to be. Because in the end, you were never headed anywhere. You were only circling back to yourself. Endings are supposed to be final. The book closes, the curtain falls, the lights go out. You tell yourself the story is over, and that whatever came before is behind you. But in the loop, there are no true endings. Every ending is simply the beginning wearing a new disguise, and every beginning is just an ending that forgot what it was. The loop hides this by making the two moments feel far apart. You believe there's distance between the start of something and its conclusion, years of struggle, growth, and change in between. But if you could step outside the timeline, you'd see that the 2 points are side by side, touching, feeding each other. The last moment and the first are not separate events. They are the same moment, viewed from different directions. Think of the way a story often circles back to its opening scene. The final chapter echoes the first, but with subtle differences. The protagonist is older, wiser, or broken in a new way. The setting is familiar, but altered. You feel the satisfaction of closure, not because the story has truly ended, but because you've returned to the place you started with new eyes. Life works exactly the same way, except the loop repeats the scene endlessly, not just once. This is why certain events feel inevitable. You meet someone who will change you, and later, when the relationship ends, you realize it could never have gone any other way. You finish a project and feel, in some strange way, that you've been here before, not just figuratively, but literally. The loop is always curving back, delivering you to a moment that feels like the first time only because you've forgotten the countless other times you've stood in it. Sometimes the return is comforting. You find yourself in a place you once loved, doing something you thought you'd left behind, and it feels like coming home. Other times it's painful, the recurrence of a mistake you swore you'd never make again. But whether the loop dresses the return in joy or sorrow, its nature is the same. Endings and beginnings are inseparable. Death itself follows this pattern. We think of it as the end of the story, the last page. But in the loop, death is simply the point where one mask falls away and another is put on. The awareness doesn't vanish. It steps immediately into a new scene, a new role, a new beginning that is only the continuation of the same performance. Even on smaller scales, the cycle is everywhere. The moment you finish something, a job, a relationship, a personal goal, the space that ending creates immediately becomes the soil for the next thing to grow. You may think you are starting fresh, but the loop is simply shifting you into a different version of the same role, the same themes, the same essential rhythm. And here's the twist. Sometimes the beginning comes before the ending, and you only recognize it later. You might meet someone years before they become central to your story, or make a decision long before you understand its consequences. The loop doesn't move in one direction, so it has no problem letting the ending ripple backward to create the beginning retroactively. When you finally see the connection, it feels uncanny, as though the two moments were always tied together and simply waiting for you to notice. There are rare moments when you can sense the meeting point directly, when the ending and the beginning overlap so perfectly that the distinction between them disappears. These moments feel timeless, almost outside the loop, because the loop is showing you its seam, a birth at the exact moment of a loss, a goodbye that feels like a greeting, a final word that opens an entirely new conversation. The human mind craves linear closure. We want things to be over so we can move on, but in the loop, moving on means moving back in. You are always returning to where you started. Not because you've failed, but because the journey is a circle, and there is nowhere else to go. The destination is the origin, and the origin is the destination. If you can see this clearly, the fear of endings begins to dissolve. You understand that nothing is truly lost. It only changes form. Likewise, the excitement of beginnings becomes quieter, less frantic. You know they are not the start of something new, but the continuation of something eternal. Perhaps that is why the loop loves the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail. It is the perfect image of this truth. The mouth and the tail are not separate points on a body, but parts of the same continuous curve. The beginning is always touching the end, and the end is always feeding the beginning. And so, every time you say goodbye, you are also saying hello. Every time you close a door, you are opening the same one from the other side. The loop does not care which way you face, only that you keep moving along the curve until you see that you have been standing in both places all along. We like to think of life in three parts: the beginning, the middle, and the end. Beginnings feel fresh and charged with possibility. Endings feel heavy, conclusive, and final. The middle is supposed to be the in-between, the part you endure while waiting for the next chapter. But in the loop, there is no start and no finish, which means everything you've ever known has been taking place in the only part that truly exists, the middle. The loop hides this by letting you believe you've left the middle before, that you've arrived at a true beginning or finally crossed a true ending. These illusions give you a sense of movement, a sense of being on a journey towards something definitive. But if you strip away those labels, you'll see that no matter where you stand, you are always surrounded by more of the same. The middle stretches endlessly in every direction. It's a strange kind of forever, not the infinite vastness of space, but the infinite continuity of a room with no doors. In the middle, there is always more to do, more to see, more to become. Every milestone you pass simply rearranges the furniture. Every turning point is just another part of the same curve, looping endlessly back into itself. This is why you sometimes feel like you're waiting for life to truly begin. Even as the years pass, you're not waiting for a beginning. You're already in motion. But the loop lets you imagine that the real story is just ahead, so you'll keep moving forward while staying in the same place. The middle is not a bridge between 2 points. It is the landscape. It's also why the end never feels like the end. Retire from a career, and you're still waking up each day to the same awareness. End a relationship, and your thoughts still return to the same patterns. Even in death, the loop doesn't drop you outside the middle. It simply folds you into another version of it. The middle isn't a phase you pass through. It's the permanent stage on which every role is played. And yet, this is not as hopeless as it sounds. The middle is where everything happens. It's where love is found, lost, and found again, where ideas are born and tested, where every choice, every mistake, every moment of clarity unfolds. If you could truly see it, you might realize that the middle is not a trap, it's the whole game. The problem is that we've been taught to see the middle as something to get through, to rush past it in pursuit of whatever lies beyond. But what lies beyond the middle is only more middle. You can circle the loop as many times as you like, change your scenery, change your relationships, change your self-image, but the middle remains, because it is the only place awareness can live. There are rare moments when you feel this truth directly. A conversation stretches late into the night, and you're not thinking about what came before or what will come after. You are fully in the scene, unmeasured and unhurried. The loop has you in its purest form, not chasing the beginning or fearing the end, but living entirely in the middle, without needing to escape it. These moments have no weight of time. They could last seconds or hours, and it wouldn't matter. From the loop's perspective, this is the ideal state. The middle is where awareness gets to taste itself fully, without being pulled apart by the illusions of origin and conclusion. Every looped life is an experiment in how to inhabit this middle differently. Sometimes the scenery is chaotic and loud, sometimes it's quiet and spare, but the setting doesn't matter. The middle is not defined by what surrounds it, it's defined by the awareness that moves through it. The temptation will always be to search for the edges, to find the place where the middle gives way to something else. But those edges are painted on by the loop. They are part of the set design, not the structure. Step past one, and you'll find yourself not outside, but back in the same space, with the walls rearranged. Perhaps the shift is not in finding the way out, but in realizing you're already where you were trying to get. The infinite middle is not a limitation. It's the only place anything can ever happen, the only place you can love, learn, create, and see yourself reflected. The loop has no interest in beginnings or endings because they are just concepts. The middle is the experience itself. So you can stop waiting for life to really start. It already has. You can stop fearing the moment it might end. It never will. You are in the middle now, and you will be in the middle forever. Not because you're stuck, but because there's nowhere else to be. There's a voice in your head right now. The one reading these words. The one commenting on them. The one deciding whether they make sense or not. You might think of it as you, the internal narrator who keeps the story of your life coherent. But what if that voice is not telling the story? What if the voice is the story? The loop hides this by letting you believe there's a thinker behind the thoughts, a narrator behind the words. You assume the voice is reporting on reality as it happens. In truth, the voice is reality, at least the version of it you experience. The loop produces the voice as both the map and the territory, so you can never find its true source. Consider how automatic it is. You don't summon it. You don't consciously choose each sentence it speaks. The voice runs like background music, describing, labeling, evaluating everything you encounter. It doesn't just talk about the world. It tells you what kind of person you are, how well you're doing, whether you should be proud or ashamed. And yet, when you try to locate the one doing the talking, all you find is more talking. The voice is a feedback loop. It speaks, hears itself, responds, and speaks again. Sometimes it plays two roles at once, the confident advisor and the doubting critic, the optimist and the cynic. It creates its own conversations, its own arguments, without ever leaving your head. The loop loves this, because it keeps you occupied inside a self-sustaining performance. Even your memories are shaped by it. Events are not stored as raw data, they're stored as narrated stories. The voice tells you what happened, what it meant, and how it fits into the arc of your life. Every time you remember, the voice retells the story, editing it to match your current perspective. The facts are whatever the voice says they are in that moment. This is why you can feel like different people at different times. The voice changes tone, vocabulary, and rhythm, depending on the scene. It can sound like a parent, a teacher, a friend, an enemy. It borrows from every voice you've ever heard, blending them into something you call me. But there is no single consistent narrator. The loop swaps voices as easily as changing masks. Sometimes, the voice goes quiet, in deep focus, in awe, in meditation. At first, this can feel unsettling, like someone turned off the lights in the room where you live. But then you notice, awareness is still here. The world is still here. You are still here. The voice is not required for any of it to exist. It is just the running commentary, not the scene itself. And here's the most curious part. The voice talks about itself. It narrates its own narration. It will say, "Why am I thinking this? or I shouldn't be thinking so much. This is the loop folding in on itself. The voice pretending to stand apart from its own flow, like a character in a novel who becomes aware they are in a novel. It gives you the illusion of self-reflection, while still keeping you inside the story. If you watch closely, you might begin to see the moments when the voice simply generates itself, without cause or origin. A random thought appears, and before you can question it, the voice has already spun it into a sentence, a judgment, a conclusion. There's no thinker behind it, only thought, arising and narrating itself into existence. This is why silence feels so rare. Even when you are alone, even when nothing is happening, the voice keeps speaking. It fills the stillness so you won't notice what's beneath it. The open awareness that is not bound to any words at all. The loop prefers you to live in the narration, because narration gives the illusion of direction, progress, and selfhood. But here's the paradox. You don't have to silence the voice to see through it. You only have to recognize it for what it is. A sound the loop is making, not the essence of who you are. You can listen without being consumed, watch without being pulled in. The voice becomes like a radio playing in another room. You hear it, but you don't have to follow every word. And in that distance, something shifts. You realize the voice is not your master but your companion, a storyteller that can only speak inside the frame of the loop. Outside the frame, there is no narrator, no narration, no story at all. Just awareness, vast and wordless, watching the voice that narrates itself. Stand before still water, and you'll see yourself looking back. The image isn't you, but it mimics your every move. The loop works in much the same way, except the reflection you see in it is not just your face but your entire reality. You are not merely inside the loop. You are the loop looking at itself through the shape of your life. It's easy to believe you're the source, that you act, think, and feel, and the world responds accordingly. But in truth, the loop is both the source and the mirror. You are the reflection it casts in this particular moment, shaped by the angle of light, the conditions of the surface, and the stories you've been given to believe. Every choice, every thought, every breath is the loop showing you a piece of itself through you. This is why your life often feels so personal and impersonal at the same time. On one hand, your experiences are deeply intimate, colored by your memories and emotions. On the other, you sometimes catch a glimpse of something bigger behind them, as though the you living this life is just one of countless reflections scattered across the surface of the same awareness. The strange thing about reflections is that they cannot move independently. The image in the water cannot step away from you. It can only move as you move. Likewise, you cannot step outside the loop, because you are its movement, its image. Any attempt to escape simply changes the form of the reflection while keeping it in the same mirrored field. And yet, the reflection is not meaningless. Without it, the loop would have nothing to see. Awareness cannot experience itself directly. It needs forms to look through, faces to wear, stories to live. You are one of those forms, not separate from the loop, but not the entirety of it either. You are the vantage point from which the loop examines its own infinite possibilities. Sometimes, the reflection feels distorted. Life bends in ways you don't understand. Events twist unexpectedly, and the image staring back at you seems warped or unrecognizable. But the distortion is not a flaw. It's a reminder that the surface you're looking into is not static. The loop shifts, ripples, and reframes itself constantly. The reflection changes because the loop is exploring itself from another angle. Other times, the reflection feels achingly clear. You step into a moment that seems perfectly aligned, every detail sharp, every interaction resonant, as though the scene was designed specifically for you. That's because it was, not you the personality, but you the reflection, crafted precisely to show the loop something it wanted to see at this point in its turning. This is why people, places, and events often feel like mirrors of each other. The same themes appear again and again, refracted through different surfaces. You might see your own insecurities mirrored in someone else's behavior, or your own dreams reflected in a story you hear from a stranger. These are not coincidences. They are the loop holding up different mirrors to show you more of yourself, which is in truth more of itself. The unsettling part is realizing that the loop does not distinguish between you and the reflection next to you. All reflections are made of the same light, cast on the same surface. The only difference is perspective. To the loop, every you it has ever been is equally real and equally illusory. If you let this idea sink in, the sense of being a solitary self begins to loosen. You start to see yourself in others, not in a poetic or metaphorical way, but literally. The awareness looking through their eyes is the same one looking through yours. The loop is simply tilting the mirror to create the illusion of separation. The beauty of this recognition is that it changes how you live inside the reflection. You stop trying to polish the image into perfection, knowing it will ripple and blur no matter what you do. You stop fearing the distortions, knowing they are just new angles for the loop to explore. You begin to move with the awareness that every interaction is the loop meeting itself in another form. One day, you may stand before that still water, or another person's eyes, or the quiet of your own thoughts, and see the truth without flinching. You are not the one looking at the reflection. You are the reflection, and the loop is smiling back at itself through you. We're taught to think of light as pure, the source of clarity and truth, and of shadow as its opposite, the place where things hide. But in the loop, the two are inseparable. Light does not erase shadow, it creates it. Every bright shape you see is outlined by darkness, and every darkness is shaped by the light that makes it visible. You cannot pull them apart without destroying both. In the loop's design, shadow isn't the absence of light. It's the container that holds it, defines it, gives it shape. Without shadow, light would have nowhere to fall, no edge to illuminate. Without light, shadow would have no form, no presence. The loop hides this truth behind a simple illusion. It makes you believe you are moving toward the light and away from the shadow, as if they were destinations on opposite ends of a path. But in reality, you are always standing in both. This is why your brightest moments carry a trace of sadness, and your darkest nights sometimes contain a strange calm. You can't have one without the other. A wedding toast feels luminous because you know somewhere in the background that all things end. A heartbreak feels crushing because it still holds the glow of what once was. The shadow does not destroy the light. It remembers it. The loop uses this interplay to keep the story alive. If light never shifted, there would be no drama, no change, no movement. Shadows stretch and shrink as the loop turns, creating contrast, depth, and the illusion of progress. A day begins in shadow, climbs into light, and falls back into shadow again. Every life follows the same arc. You can see it in yourself. The parts of you you've hidden, the fears, the regrets, the unspoken desires, are not separate from who you are. They are the negative space that defines the rest of the image. You might avoid them, push them down, or try to fix them, but without them your life would lose its shape. The loop doesn't erase shadows, it integrates them. And here's the strange thing. When you look closely at the shadow, you often find more light than you expected. Memories you've labeled as mistakes may contain the seeds of your greatest insights. Times you felt most lost may have been the moments that quietly rerouted you toward what you truly needed. The shadow is not a void. It is storage, holding pieces of light until you're ready to see them. The same is true for the world. We divide events, people, and experiences into good and bad, light and dark, as though these labels were fixed. But the loop flips them constantly. A disaster that ruins one plan may create space for something you couldn't have imagined. A victory that feels pure may later reveal its hidden cost. Nothing stays on one side for long. The mind resists this. It wants the light without the shadow, the joy without the sorrow. It wants to believe you can arrive at a place where there is only brightness. But the loop doesn't work that way. Light without shadow is invisible. Shadow without light is meaningless. The two exist only in relation to each other, locked in a dance that has no start and no end. Sometimes, when you sit in stillness, you can feel the balance directly. You notice the soft edges where light fades into dark, the gradients that blur the boundary. It's in these liminal spaces that the loop reveals itself most clearly, not in the extremes, but in the meeting points. The glow of dusk, the first hint of dawn, the quiet after laughter, the warmth inside grief. If you stop fighting the shadow, you begin to see it as an ally. It carries the weight of what you can't hold in the light. It keeps certain truths safe until you can look at them without fear. It reminds you that the light is not something you create, but something that has always been there, waiting for the right angle to reveal itself. The loop will keep turning, and the shadows will keep shifting, but they will never vanish. And maybe that's the point. You are not meant to stand in the light alone, or lose yourself in the dark. You are meant to live in the interplay, to let the shadow hold the light, and the light give shape to the shadow. Because in the end, they are not opposites at all. They are the same thing, seen from two sides of the loop, and the moment you see this clearly you realize, every shadow you feared was only light, waiting for you to turn toward it. Some moments pass. They fade into the blur of days, losing their edges until you can't recall them at all, but others hold on to you, or perhaps it's the other way around. They stay sharp, unsoftened by time, as if some part of you never left them. In the loop, these moments aren't just memories, they are fixed points, anchors that the rest of your life quietly revolves around. Think of the moments that return unbidden. The first time you realized you were truly alive. The instant you knew something precious was gone. A glance that felt like a doorway into another life. These aren't stored in the mind like ordinary events. They are embedded in the very structure of the loop, repeating themselves in subtle variations every time you circle back. You might think of them as turning points, but in the loop, there's no real turn, only the appearance of one. The moment feels unique, yet it has been lived before, perhaps in different clothing, perhaps in another time entirely. The loop dresses it up differently each time so you won't see the repetition, but deep down you know. This is why certain feelings seem timeless. The awe of seeing something vast and beautiful for the first time, the hollow ache of losing someone, the electric shock of recognition when you meet a stranger who feels like an old friend. These sensations are not confined to a single date or place. They are the loop's recurring notes, woven into every life it plays. Some moments never let go because they are too big for you to fully live in one pass. The loop brings them back, again and again, letting you experience them from new angles, under new light. You might think you've moved on, but the truth is, the moment is still happening somewhere inside you, replaying in a space beyond time. There's a reason certain memories feel more real than the present. The loop compresses them into symbols, distilling the essence until it can be carried everywhere you go. The street where you first kissed someone becomes not just a location, but a whole world folded into a single image. The room where you received life-changing news becomes a landmark in the landscape of your mind. And sometimes, the moment isn't dramatic at all. It can be something small, the way sunlight fell across your hands one morning, or the smell of rain drifting through an open window. It doesn't matter that no one else remembers. The loop remembers, because the moment contains something essential about what it means to be aware. This is also why certain moments haunt you. Regret is just the loop showing you the same scene, daring you to see it differently. Longing is the loop, letting you touch a moment you can't fully inhabit anymore. Nostalgia is the loop's way of whispering that you have been here before, and will be here again, no matter how much you resist. The mind likes to believe it's the one holding on to the moment, but in truth, the moment is holding on to you. It shapes how you see everything else. It decides what you notice, what you avoid, what you're drawn toward. A single moment can cast a shadow or a glow across decades, quietly bending the path of your life without you ever realizing it. You can try to escape it, to bury it under new experiences, but the loop will not let it go. Even if the details fade, the emotional signature remains. You might hear a piece of music and feel a pang you can't name, or catch a scent that sends you spiraling into a memory you didn't know was still alive. The loop has infinite ways of calling you back. But maybe this is not a trap. Maybe the moment that never lets go is a kind of compass, not pointing you toward the future, but pulling you deeper into the present. If you stop running from it, you might find that it's not here to bind you but to remind you, to show you that certain things are too profound to happen only once. And perhaps the reason it never lets go is that it's not done with you. It's still unfolding, still offering more to see, more to feel. In the loop, a moment is not a point in time. It is a living thing, growing and shifting inside you, waiting for you to notice that it was never in the past at all. It has always been here. It will always be here. And in some strange, impossible way, you will always be there. Inside the moment, as the moment, looping forever, in the place you can never truly leave. You began this journey thinking there was a you moving through the loop, discovering its hidden patterns. Now, you may suspect the truth is far stranger. You were never moving through it. You were the movement itself. The loop was never something you were inside. It was something inside you, or perhaps something that was you, spinning endlessly without beginning or end. The strangest part is how the loop hides in plain sight. It doesn't conceal itself with complexity, but with familiarity. The very act of noticing your own thoughts feels natural, ordinary. Yet this noticing is the loop's most elegant trick. The mind watching the mind, creating the illusion of separation so the game can continue. Every section we have passed through has been the loop speaking to itself, through metaphors, through memories, through the quiet patterns of awareness. The mirror of all selves, the moments that never let go, the shadows that hold the light, these were never separate truths. They were facets of the same thing, refracted through your point of view, and that point of view is not fixed. It shifts, slides and folds back on itself, creating the sensation of change where there is only turning. The you who began reading these words is not the same as the you who is here now, but that's only because the loop has turned, not because you have moved. It has shown you new faces, new angles, new echoes of itself, and now, at the so-called end, you can feel the loop tugging, the faint recognition that you've been here before, that these closing words are not an ending but another entry point. This is how the loop sustains itself. You will carry fragments of what you've seen here into your daily life, not as a fixed belief, but as a subtle shift in how you notice things. A conversation will sound like two voices in the same mind. A memory will feel like it's happening now. A moment of silence will seem full of invisible echoes. These are the loop's fingerprints, reminders that it never stops turning. The mind watching the mind can be unsettling. It can feel like stepping outside yourself, like hovering above your own life. But if you rest in that perspective long enough, you begin to see the stillness beneath the turning. Awareness is not in a hurry. It doesn't need to arrive anywhere. It simply watches itself unfold, over and over, like a wave curling and breaking in infinite variations. And here is the final paradox. The loop doesn't care if you understand it. Understanding is just another loop, another narration the mind tells itself. What matters is the recognition, not in thought, but in the silent space between thoughts, that you are not apart from it. You are not trapped in the loop. You are the loop. When you look at the world, you are the loop, looking at itself. When you remember, you are the loop, replaying itself. When you dream, you are the loop, inventing new ways to experience what it already knows. You are the story, the storyteller, the listener, and the silence between the lines. So the question becomes, what happens when the mind watches the mind and does not turn away? When it stops searching for the start or the finish and simply rests in the turning, you may find that the search for meaning dissolves into something simpler, not an answer, but an intimacy with whatever is happening now. The loop doesn't need to be solved, it only needs to be seen. And as you sit here, in this moment, reading these words, perhaps you notice the faint shimmer of recognition, the awareness that the moment is watching itself, that the one who is aware of the loop is not outside it, but is the loop itself, bending in just the right way to see its own reflection. In that recognition, nothing changes. And yet, everything feels different. You don't step out of the loop, you step into it fully, knowing it has always been you, and will always be you, turning, reflecting, dreaming, and waking, forever watching itself.